Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I explore a different industry or different area of business that is being transformed by technology, but in many cases is invisible or even taken for granted by users like you and me. For example, I recently learned that 25% of the Fortune 50 companies trust a company called Samasource to deliver secure, high-quality training data and validation for the tech teams driving humanity forward. And by that, I mean everything from self-driving cars to smart hardware. Samasource is actually fueling AI, and it was founded over a decade ago, and are experts in image, video, and sensor data annotation and validation for machine learning algorithms in industries such as automotive, navigation, AR, VR, biotech, agriculture, manufacturing, and e-commerce. And their staff are also driven by a mission to expand opportunities for low-income people through the digital economy. And their social business model has helped over 50,000 people lift themselves out of poverty. But here's the thing. Despite all those incredible achievements, I do suspect that many people listening will be hearing about them for the very first time. So, as the leading training data company that's fueling Silicon Valley's AI, I wanted to learn more about how Samasource has also seen firsthand how the global pandemic has affected the entire industry. And given Samasource's vertical expertise, I invited Wendy Gonzalez onto the podcast today to take a deep dive into how the autonomous vehicle and virtual reality industries are being impacted right now. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to California so we can speak with Wendy right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Wendy. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Great. Yes. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on the show, Neil. My name is Wendy Gonzalez. I'm the Interim CEO at Samasource. And to share a little bit about Samasource, we are an industry-leading provider of training data. And what training data is training data is the labeled structured data that is necessary to help machines or artificial intelligence models learn how to see, speak, or hear. So, as an example of that, before a self-driving car can drive itself, it needs to know how to identify a car, a vehicle, a pedestrian, as an example. So we provide a platform and humans in the loop who help create the structured data that teach basically the Fortune 500 and the world's leading companies, and we help them deploy their artificial intelligence.
And you're also fueling Silicon Valley's AI, but for people hearing about you for the very first time, could you possibly bring that to life and tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving for your clients out there?
Yeah, definitely. So as an example, we've worked with clients such as Walmart, as Microsoft. So in the case of Walmart, as you can imagine, one of the world's leading retailers that has a massive digital catalog. We help provide the structured data that allows you to search for your products. So, is a granola, a breakfast bar, a snack, or, health food, as an example. All the way to other applications such as self-driving cars. So we work with a lot of leading automotive suppliers and software companies to help train their models on how to basically drive, right? So how to detect, again, people, pedestrians, road signs, all the way to companies like Microsoft. So we, supported the Windows Hello release, where when you open up your laptop, it is able to recognize your face and automatically log you in. So those are some of the kind of practical applications. And those kinds of artificial intelligence models can take large volumes of structured data to really learn how to be able to accurately detect and see these objects.
I loved your example of the granola bar there. Presumably, it could solve so many of the big debates that we all have. I mean, for example, over here in the UK, it's Jaffa cakes. Are they cakes or are they biscuits? Maybe it can solve many of those heated debates through artificial intelligence too.
Exactly.
But it has been a difficult year for businesses of all sizes. But I believe you know firsthand how the pandemic has affected the entire industry. So can I possibly ask that you share some of the insights that you've seen out there?
So how have we seen the pandemic affect AI and sort of the application of AI? Well, what's been interesting is that we've seen really a few things. One is that, in the case of really kind of high tech, we've seen the demand continue to grow. The examples of Walmart and e-commerce, we continue to see needs to use artificial intelligence to power e-commerce and online retail solutions. We see a lot of continued activity in augmented and virtual reality, to where that work can continue to happen. In fact, there's probably more demand for a lot of those online activities, and for areas like autonomous vehicles, which is another major area of investment for artificial intelligence. While we've seen demand continue to go because these are multi-year, very large, complex problems to solve for. What's interesting is that we also have seen some delays and gaps because people can't get cars out on the road to collect the data. So we've seen both sides of that. And probably one of the other thing that has been really interesting is that artificial intelligence is mission critical to many of our businesses. So we've actually seen kind of some upswing, if you will, in demand because our clients need supplier diversity. This data is mission critical. So having a consistent supply of data is very key.
And I'm curious, from there, how have you seen companies using AI in the fight against COVID-19? Because I think we've got people listening all over the world. And the one thing that we all share right now is it's been a huge upheaval right across our tiny planet here. So I'm curious the kind of role that AI is playing in that fight. Have you got any examples there?
Yeah, definitely. So I have some examples that we've supported as Samasource, but I can share some more as well.
Sure.
So recently, over the course of the pandemic, we partnered with Mila, which is an industry leading AI think tank that's based in Montreal, and they were working to basically build an open source chatbot that allowed people to answer questions in both French and English to be able to identify and detect symptoms. So that is something that we powered through training data to where we identified through both French and English, and actually applied metadata labels to responses. Right, so like, am I having trouble breathing? Might be something, and then you would tag it with a piece of data so that the machine learning the chatbot could help detect symptoms and guide people to an appropriate hospital or testing facility. So we've seen a lot of that activity. In addition to that, we're also seeing some more on the both diagnosis and kind of beyond symptoms, but diagnosis side as well. So lung scans are something that we're seeing happening as well, to where companies are using computer vision to be able to detect either damage or inflammation of lungs, et cetera.
Fantastic. And how do you think this pandemic will change the investments that businesses are making into AI? Do you think it will speed things up a little bit?
I think for many industries, it will. There is so much good. There's a lot of, of course, dangers to having the right type of AI and the right type of data. But there's a huge amount of good that can happen through this. So imagine, being able to do, a very accurate level of diagnosis, completely through AI. That'll be incredible. So we see a lot more happening in sort of biotech and medical. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of investment in autonomous transportation and vehicles, and safety applications, as well as a kind of augmented virtual reality. So this is really where we see a lot of the demand right now, and we expect it to grow.
So how do you think artificial intelligence and machine learning companies, have you seen them pivoting business models to adapt to these changing times? Is there any trends that you're seeing around there?
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things, some of which I touched on a bit before. I think one is supplier diversity. So there's a lot of data that is
Yeah.
required to bring these models to accuracy. I like to use the self-driving car example because it's just one that's like kind of really easy to get your head wrapped around. But as you can imagine, being able to detect road signs is one thing in one location or country, right? So local streets versus freeways and highways. Imagine even just the difference between us, right? So driving on the right side of the road or the left side of the road, there are so many use cases. And then on top of that, you take all the geographic differences, and then you take things like weather. What do things look like when it's hail or sunny, or there's lots of reflections, it's very bright and there's no cloud cover. So the volume of data to get to a level of precision, especially ones that involve safety, we're going to continue to see a huge demand for that pipeline. And then, beyond that, as I think our world gets more and more virtual, we see so much investment happening in communications, media, and entertainment. So, yeah, I think that I think there's going to be more, investment than ever in certain segments. In others, as an example, we do have clients that are in the hospitality industry. I think there's a natural downturn in what's happening there. So while we're going to see, I think, a lot more movement in some industries, I think there are others that, as you can imagine, based on the pandemic, are going to be making less investments.
And as for AI leaders, is there anything that you think they should be prioritizing right now in order to be successful in the post-pandemic world too?
I think that continuity and supplier diversity is key. So the need for having enough training data is really critical, and being able to have solutions on how you can collect data in a very restricted environment, I think is going to be one thing that people need to be quite concerned about. And I think the other component of it is also based off of what I shared before, right? Having enough data. The key is really about the right data and the right quality. As you can imagine, when you're, there's no AI without training data, right? So a self-driving car cannot drive itself. It doesn't know how to detect and see objects. So roughly 80% of all AI projects fail because of lack of training data. And it's not just about the volumes of data, it's really about having the right data. So if you can imagine a situation, again, using that self-driving car example, imagine where you have a whole bunch of data and it gets structured and labeled, with high quality, but it's missing a representative sample of motorcycles. That would be really challenging, right?
Yeah.
Because you inherently have bias and a safety risk. So I think beyond having the right volumes, it's real about having the right data. And that's something that everybody should be very concerned about, because we don't want to inherently create bias in any of our algorithms and models.
And something that I feel I must highlight is Samasource is a trusted high-quality training data and validation provider for 25% of the Fortune 50, including names such as Walmart, Google, and Microsoft. So is there anything you can share with me that the kind of problems that your clients are coming to you and asking for your help with, or the kind of conversations that you're having, not getting into specific names or anything, but just the trends around the kind of problems that they're coming to you with?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really ties into quality. That's the thing that we really see the most.
Yeah.
Is that, as you can imagine, once upon a time. So I mean, AI has been around for a while. A lot of work that initially happened, for example, were things like transcription. Right. So how do you take a document and digitize it automatically? And through that, optical character recognition was identified, or I should say developed as a technology. Okay, that's great, but it only kind of gets you so far. And the same thing happens in computer vision as well, is that, many years ago, the types of training data problems we were solving were things like, is there, a car in this picture, or is there a dog in this picture? Right. And those are very, very simple models. Now things have gotten quite a bit more complex and advanced. But at the end of the day, until like every piece of sort of, language and object in the world is structured, at that point in time, we'll have the singularity, right? That means everything can be automated. There's a huge amount of work to do. So it's all of those. We just see the solutions and the workflow is getting more and more complex. So again, that's where quality comes in, because the example I used about motorcycles is one example. Imagine that one on pedestrians. Imagine if a model cannot detect people of certain shape, sizes, or colors. How could you ever deploy that successfully in the market? So really, what we hear mostly about is how do we get to the absolute highest level of quality, and how do we ensure that our data sets are diverse so that when we put them out into the market, they're functioning properly. So that's really what I mean by quality, and that comes up consistently, day in and day out from our clients.
And as for Samasource, what's next for you? Is there anything you can share about the road ahead?
Definitely. Well, we're extremely excited to be in this space. We have it's tremendous. The spend for AI is going to be nearly 100 billion, according to IDC, over the course of the next few years. So we're really excited to be in a place to where we are powering the world's leading companies and helping them deploy AI. I think we're also really excited about beyond growing these particular industries. We're really focusing on enhancing our platforms to make the development of training data as quick, efficient, and high quality as possible. But we're also really excited about carrying forward our mission. I didn't get a chance to sort of touch on that a little bit before, but we have a social mission in addition to our business. We were founded actually as a company that was really focused on giving work to people living in underserved communities. So we hire people who've got the greatest barriers to employment, which tend to be those that are making less than $2 a day, which is the World Bank standard for poverty. We reach into these communities, we provide digital skills training, and then we provide full-time work with benefits and living wages. And what has been really amazing about this is that we, in addition to lifting people out of poverty, we've moved over 50,000 people out of poverty since we were founded, is that we focus on gender diversity too. So 50% of our workforce is female, at least 50. So actually right now it's 52. And the other half male. And we did that purposely from a social standpoint because, again, women in these underserved communities have great barriers to employment. But it creates a really, I think, very important thing, which is a diverse and ethical supply chain. It's something that we're very excited to talk about with our Fortune 50 clients, to share more about how diversity in your supply chain, and in particular when you're talking about powering artificial intelligence, how important that diversity is, both not just in terms of creating impact, but in terms of having a different set of eyes and different views on the data that's coming into your system. So most of our workforce is based in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's a very important thing, I think, in terms of not only growing artificial intelligence, but one of the things we like to share about is really leadership around the ethical AI supply chain and how to ensure that you've got a diverse set of eyes on your data.
I love that. So powerful and so refreshing to hear. And for anyone listening that would like to find you online or contact your team if they've left with any questions after our conversation today, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, so you can follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or of course go to our website, which is www.samasource.com.
Fantastic. Well, I've loved talking with you today and hearing from self-driving cars to smart hardware that Samasource is fueling AI in Silicon Valley and beyond, but also about your staff and how they're driven by this mission to expand opportunities for low-income people through the digital economy and social business models that have helped over 50,000 people lift themselves out of poverty. Inspirational stuff. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to come on here and share that story with us all today. So thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Neil. Really appreciate your time.
I always try and learn a few things from my guests. And today I learn how AI and ML companies are actually pivoting their business models to adapt to these changing times. And also how companies are using AI in the fight against COVID-19 and how this pandemic will actually change the investments made into AI. And the knock-on effect of that is what AI leaders need to prioritise right now in order to be successful in a post-pandemic world. But what are your big takeaways? As always, you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, look for @NeilCHughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So I'm really interested in what you guys come back with on this, because I think it was a fascinating interview. So please send those insights over, even if it's just a question or you want to come on the show, whatever it is. As long as it's not a straight sales pitch, I will always reply to every message, because I want to get to know each and every one of you a little bit, because I do talk into your ears every day of the week, 365 days of the year. So I'd love to start a conversation with you too. But that's it for today. So I'll return again first thing tomorrow morning. But a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.